One. Hello and welcome to the Outcast. I'm your host HC, and with me is.
Wolf.
And today I am sad.
It's the end
It's
of an
you.
era.
Yeah, it's the end of an era, an end of a fantastic show, and I guess because there's no way we're gonna talk about this season and review it without talking about the behind the scenes thing, because if I remember correctly, our season 2 review ended with this discussion. So
A little bit.
let's get this out of the way now. And I just want to say we have a guest on this episode that's gonna jump in later. And she can basically ask, okay, you know what? I don't want to be there when you talk about the cancellation. So might as well get this out of the way now before we talk about
That's
the
right, ladies and
season.
gentlemen. Our guest is Dana Terrace herself.
I
Woo.
wish. Don't get me wrong. I love the friend that's coming up. Basically my best friend online. But listen, don't. I would love to get Dana Terrace. Actually, Dana Terrace, if you're listening to this by any chance, just hit us up. That's all I'm saying.
Listen, I'm gonna shit all over your show. Get ready.
No, God forbid. No, she made one of the best shows in modern television. Okay.
I'm
But anyway,
contrarian. It's my job.
yes. You like the show too. Shut up.
Sure.
You see? I am right eventually. But anyway, so the Owl House, third season, if you even want to call it that. To those who don't know the story, even though I think if you're listening to this, I believe it's gonna be impossible for you to not know the story. The Owl House was initially renewed for a third season, a full third season, and then Disney came in and were like, you know what? No, you are now getting three specials. Your third season is being shortened to three long episodes, lasting between 40 something minutes to 50 something minutes, and that's what you get. That's how you are ending your show. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember anything like this being done before. Like with any show?
I no. Generally, if a show's canceled, like there might be a couple that escapes me that it's happened to before, but generally speaking, like I guess there's maybe a show out there that I think has like, oh, we didn't get a season, we got a special, and that's our end, right? But I don't know if that was
Or
necessarily
like,
because the show was canceled per se.
but forget that. I know there are there's a show like, let's say, Veronica Mars, for example, where the first two seasons were, I think, 22 episodes, something. Oh no, there were 21 episodes or something like that, and then season three was like a 2 or 3 episodes shorter than the norm, and it did kind of fuck up with something the creators were intending to do with that. But not to this degree of like you are not even getting a full season, like a full season of television, at least in terms of networking, means 13 episodes, 13 half hours at the very basic minimum.
Yeah.
So to suddenly just cut all of that into 3 hour long specials, which they uploaded the 3 episodes like combined as one video to YouTube, and that's lasting 2.5 hours. So this entire season is shorter than some movies that came out.
Wait,
Okay, you can.
Disney put it out on YouTube?
Yeah, all
Oh.
3 episodes, like whenever each episode came out, they would put after the TV premiere, they would put it on YouTube as a separate video. And now,
If I
after
would have
all
known
three
that,
came out,
I wouldn't have paid
uh,
for Disney Plus. You know, and
yeah,
just
and
saying.
that's actually a thing that they do this with some things. I think this season of the Allows was special because each one was supposedly its own event, so it made sense, I
Wouldn't have paid
guess.
Disney any fucking money if I would have fucking known that. Fuck you, Disney.
Yeah, let's
Anyways,
say okay.
just saying.
Let, you know what? Let's get one straight fact out of the way. The mouse is evil.
This is true. This is very true. You know, it's the slogan isn't hey, we're not slow, you're just moving too fast. Disney, we're not slow, you're just moving too fast for nothing.
Yeah, Disney be like, we don't kill your shows. You just decided to stop making them,
But
even though it's not true.
getting back to the
And
topic though, yeah, it
yeah, but
is
again,
weird, right? That
yeah, I don't remember if something like this ever happened. Let me know, but
I feel like
I
this
don't
one
remember.
is more prevalent because it's more high profile, right? This is a much bigger show, and plus this one was very quick and very early on introduced that hey, there's a lesbian couple, right? It very quickly and very early on
Oh,
introduced that.
yeah, and okay, you know what? Let's actually talk about this because it's part of the entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
I because something tells me that I'm not. Let's say I'm not that naive. I am 100% sure that the LGBTQ representation in this show, because at least on network television, I know we have stuff like Shira and other stuff that has, you could argue, more representation in it. That, like, it's a bit more, I don't want to say in your face, but a bit more prevalent than the Owl House. But I think the Owl House is the one animated show that's on TV. It's Disney
Would
Plus
you?
notwithstanding, because it would premiere on TV first. Owl House is one of those shows that, like, really has this representation, like, at the not necessarily at the front center, but they do it in a way that it's definitely there, right? Like,
Yeah,
lose an
it's not
Emmy.
subtle, right? Like you go back and you watch She-Ra, right? She-Ra is very subtle. You don't really get anything until like the
Was
last.
it?
I feel like that was like subtle, quote unquote, right? Like they're not giving you anything until very like you're not getting anything. Like this gives Our House gives you something in the first season, right? Like I think they kiss in the first season, if I'm remembering correctly.
No, they don't.
They don't.
Like, the first time we get a kiss, and even then it's like on the cheek, is in season two, and eventually near the end of the season, Amity and Luz are.
Well,
They say the word girlfriend on screen several times, and
they
we do get like a full
yeah.
on kiss
So like
near the
they do things in the first season though. It's like okay, this is their plan. It's very obvious that their plan is this.
end.
She-Ra,
Yeah,
yeah, you can tell they're not being super subtle about it, but I feel like you're not being given anything right between Adora and Catra until very much later on. That's when you finally get something between those two. Before then, you don't really get a whole lot of any, if anything. And there's nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing wrong with the way Our House done it, But
yeah,
like
of course.
as many people from the LGBTQ community will say, right? Like Korra, She-Ra, and many other shows walked so something like the Owl House could run,
And
right?
again, I would argue Shira is a bit different because, when you also look at, like, side characters and stuff, the LGBTQ just dripped from that show. Not
Sure,
in a
agreed.
bad way.
No,
Not in a bad way, by
but
any
I do
means.
feel that to me personally, watching it, it felt like it was a bit more background than what the Owl House did because a lot of that was like
Yeah. No,
side
I
characters
agree.
or background characters. The Owl House was fairly front and center about it with their
I'll
main
tell you
characters
what,
very early on. Is my point.
and that's kind of like what I want to drive home, though. I think also again, not to say that Shira is bad, and not to say that the representation is not welcomed. Far from it. I appreciate Shira for what it did and how it presented itself. But I will
Sure.
say that with Shira, it felt more, at least to me, it felt a bit more like, we can do this now. We are allowed to do this,
Mhm.
and we are gonna put this when we are gonna kind of put this there front and center, to the point that you can't escape. You can't escape it, and we're gonna show you that you can't.
Sure.
Because I guess, like, but our house felt a bit more natural about it. Like,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And again, not to discredit She-Ra or something like that. I'm just saying, in terms of the vibe, in terms of how they presented it,
Hmm.
the Outlaws did it in a more it's just a part of life, and people have to accept it. We're not gonna put this in your face, but it's there. Deal with it.
Mhm.
And I think it's a different, and it's, you need to understand that it's different because I think Shira was initially on streaming on Netflix, and they want to show, and it sometimes came across as, we are on streaming, we are different than cable TV, and we can do
Well,
stuff that cable TV
I
would put restrictions on us.
I do remember
Sometimes,
the creator from She-Ra talking about how they couldn't do that immediately though, right? Like
yes,
they had to set everything up, and then when they realized, like, or when they, started slowly going in that direction, they then came to, like, hey, the producers, like, this is a thing we want to do. We would really like to do this. We need to be able to do this. Will you let us do this? And it was like, I think they were very much worried that they wouldn't, but they said, yeah, sure, because there was no
but
way they could, because they basically set it up in such a way that if they didn't do it, people would be upset with them.
yeah, this brings us to the
Understandably
allows,
so.
which again, so this is only with streaming, which is more lenient on those things. When Owl House is a TV show, networks are a bit more, are a bit more,
But
watchful
even
over
getting into
those.
it, right? Like, we've been talking about this. Supposedly, according to the creator, Dana Terrace, they did not cancel this show because it is,
And
appealing
you
to the
see,
LGBTQ plus community.
yeah,
They canceled it
you
because it
say,
doesn't fit their demographic on the Disney Channel, which is where the Owl House started airing at.
and
Supposedly, that's the
I
reason
was
they
getting
canceled it.
into it. I was getting into it because, for
Well,
one,
I spoil things early. It's what I do.
yeah, it's not
Lose
necessarily a matter of
dies.
spoiling or not. Dude, shut up. We're not there yet. But anyway, what I'm getting to at this is that, yes, I'm aware what Dana Terrace said, and I'm not, discrediting. I'm not discrediting what she said. She's the mind behind the show, and if she said something, then I'm gonna take it. Then I'm gonna take it as something that was said.
Saying that,
But
though, but at the same time.
but then, like, at the same time, though, one, you can't tell me that the Owl House doesn't fit your demographic. That's horse shit. That is straight up
like,
bullshit.
I
Like,
I get the
like you
idea
would.
that the Owl House might skew older and the Disney Channel wants, like, a younger audience, but it still feels very, very
Like,
weird as a reason to
it
cancel
it
a show.
feels weird when you have stuff like Avatar: The Last Airbender. I know it's Nickelodeon, but still. But you know what? Let's talk about this. You have shows like Avatar: The Last
Well,
Airbender
I think you
and
should look at it from, like,
SpongeBob
what is the
fucking
Disney.
SquarePants
Well,
on the
again, like,
same network.
well, no, that's Nickelodeon, so it's not the
Hello,
same network, right? I think,
but still,
but
what I'm
we'll look at it as they had Gravity Falls on the Disney Channel, right? Like, I
yeah,
think Amphibia was on the Disney Channel, wasn't it?
yeah, those three shows are considered brother and sister shows almost, because a
So
lot
yeah,
of the
like,
cool people worked on them.
those shows, and then you look at the Owl House, and it's like, huh, why doesn't this fit with those two? Like, I kind of get Amphibia, at least based off its first season or two, because I know it does skew younger, and then it gets a little bit darker as it goes on.
Yeah, it's
Gravity Falls is kind of the same way, but I felt like the
yeah.
Owl, like, I personally, as an older person, I look at the Owl House and I'm like, this is like not a comparison in this way, but it feels the same way the Gravity Falls did. I've not watched Amphibia, so I can't say anything. But I watched Gravity
Someone who
Falls, I watch Owl House, and I'm like, these don't feel different to me. These feel like they're hitting that same age bracket to me.
if I may, as someone who has seen all three of them, and once Jaya will get on, she'll probably help us discuss this. But let's say, how much can you say skew from our core audience when the season 2 finale of Amphibia starts with a literal message telling you some scenes might be a bit disturbing or violent for younger kids? Viewer discretion is advised. Something along those lines.
I agree. I mean, I think that's what it comes down to, though. I really do think it's my personal assumption is it's very much a disconnect between Disney higher ups and the kind of people that are watching the Disney Channel. If we were talking about Disney kids, we'd have a different
Mhm.
discussion. But we're talking about the
Yeah,
Disney
like
Channel,
let's
which
say if this were
I've
to be
personally,
Disney Junior, maybe I would have gotten it. But this is the
yeah,
the main Disney
like
channel.
to me personally, I've always looked at the Disney Channel as like, like I go back to the old Disney cartoons like Darkwing Duck or DuckTales
Yeah.
or
Oh
even
yeah, yeah. I
DuckTales
was
itself. That's
just about
another
to
one,
say.
DuckTales. Like that one skewed probably a
Yeah,
little bit
look.
younger than Owl House, but still, yeah, that had some stuff
y-
on it that I would say was not
y-
for younger kids,
Yeah,
if that's
like
the definition we're
for
going by.
like for if we also talk about the current like the newer
Yeah,
DuckTales, the
newer DuckTales.
2017 one. Yeah, like look at it, and you can't say that this is not the same core audience because this is like using the main stable Disney characters. You have Scrooge McDuck, you have Donald and Scrooge McDuck there. These are like one of the faces of Disney, and you do this stuff for them. So what's the problem with characters which were created for a show that's supposed to be a bit darker and a bit more adult from the start? Hmm?
The only thing, like, and this is why I think so many people kind of like give Disney the side eye about the cancellation for this one, because it feels like this is what you're saying, but it feels like you canceled this because, fuck the LGBTQ plus community. You all suck.
And and to
You don't suck. You're
continue
all
on
lovely people.
this, and to continue on this, you probably heard that there was a bit of when the Outcast was cancelled, there was a new person taking over Disney. I think it was Bob Chapman who took over, and then like when
And then
they
he
canceled
said,
it,
animation sucks. We're not going to do that no more. And then they're like, no, 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 no. Bob Iger, get
yeah,
back, please.
and then Bob Iger came back. But I recall there was like a quote. I'm not sure if it was Bob Chapman or like a representative or
It was
something. I'm not
someone,
sure
I
if
forget their name.
there was someone who suddenly said like when the Owl House season 3 premiered and it started like making numbers and people are like, oh, we had no idea this was this popular. And it's like, shut up, shut the fuck up.
It's like, yeah, that show's brought in numbers since day one, as far as I'm
Yeah,
aware. Like,
yeah.
now the three special episodes, I think, brought in more numbers, obviously, because it's ending,
Mhm.
but
And the other thing, and the last thing, and again, this is just an assumption, in case on the very off chance Dana Terrace is listening to this, I don't want to claim anything on your behalf. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying, from looking at everything, but also considering that Disney kind of really mistreated how this season aired and basically forced Dana Terrace to pirate her own show because the Disney Plus or the episode in general wasn't available in a country she happened to be in when it aired. When she walked out of Disney, like when she was set to leave, I think like maybe a month or so before the final episode aired, she had all those stories on Instagram and stuff just when she was cleaning and where she cleaned her office there. And you can tell the girl was a bit angry at management. She seemed bitter, and I can blame her at the slightest. She's completely justified to be bitter. I would be too, but let's be honest. Would she be this bitter about the whole thing if there wasn't something leading up to it? Like, I don't know, Disney canceling the show because of the LGBTQ stuff, which was important for her to show.
mm.
Again, this is just me throwing complete guesses to the wind, but I can't help but feel.
So I was curious. I looked it up. As far as like ratings for viewers for millions go, right? Season one pulled in more than anything. Season one was like a fucking hit across the board, yo.
Yeah,
Like,
like we
not
did,
even
and
season two was where a dip happened, where you pulled in less, but that's kind of expected to some degree because it's not something new anymore and people don't watch it as often as much and they kind of get to it when they get to it.
And I think by the time when season 2 came out, I want to say Disney Plus was already a thing.
Yes,
So
and what I'm looking at doesn't count both of them together as far as I can tell. But then you get into season 3, right? Even it, like, barring episode 2, strangely enough. Oh no, episode 3 pulled in like the most, but that's expected because it's the final
yeah,
episode.
that's the finale.
But
It's the
even season 3 didn't pull in as much as season 1 did, like per episode. Like season 1 per episode, generally speaking, still managed to stay fairly well above season 3 even, which is insane.
yeah.
And them to come out and say, we didn't know it was that popular. Bull. You liars.
Yeah, you see what I mean?
Just
You see what I
admit you
mean?
fucked up. You fucked up hard.
Well, to be honest, let's be honest. Saying we didn't know it was this it was this popular is business talk. To we fucked up.
Well,
Let's
true,
be honest.
sure, fair. But still, it's just,
To quote Matt McMuscles.
listen, for me personally, I'm looking at like Dana Terrace and like, yo, go do your thing somewhere else. Hopefully you land somewhere great and you're just allowed to do whatever you
Hopefully, like
want because
I will
I'm in for
say
another
right
show
now,
she creates.
whatever this lady is doing next, sign me up. Whatever it's gonna be,
It's the
I'm
same.
in.
It's the same thing for like the creator behind She-Ra. It's what is his name? The creator behind Gravity Falls. Alex Hirsch. Yeah, like
Yeah. Like
anything they do.
who was involved in Inside Job. Speaking
Yeah.
of shows being mistreated.
He was also kind of involved in Our House too, I suppose. I swear, this dude.
Well,
bad
know
luck
that
travels with him, man.
he and Dana Terrace are dating, right?
Oh, I did not know that. No, I don't
Apparently
keep
they
up with
are,
people.
and like so apparently they are because Dana Terrace was a storyboarder on Gravity Falls. There she pitched Our House, and when Our House began development, he was the voice of King. And eventually, he also took over Hootie because that's the funniest story. That apparently Hootie's voice was supposed to be a bad Mickey Mouse impression to make Dana Terrace laugh, and then they're like, "Yeah, let's just keep it."
It works.
Yeah,
I don't mind it.
it
too
completely
much.
works. Although you know something, so I guess this is a good chance to just move on to the show itself, unless you have anything to say about the subject.
No, I mean it's just I think Alex Hirsch is bad luck when it comes to business and shows. Apparently, dude,
No,
like
no,
everything he's involved with gets canceled.
no. Listen. Actually, you know that he wanted to finish Gravity Falls after season 1 with that same cliffhanger ending just to troll people, and then Disney were like, "Hey, care to make a season 2?" And he's like, "Oh shit." And also, I'm not sure if you've seen there's a video on YouTube.
I have of all the
where
things they had to change because of Disney.
No, like all the stuff that Disney required them to change,
Yeah,
and
like the
he's
Disney
like,
lawyer stuff. Yep, I've seen that.
and he basically trolled them back. And there's one where he actually told them, "Read what you wrote to me out loud." Like, this person is a freaking genius, and I love him.
He is very good. Like I said, I'm very interested to see where him and a lot of these other creators land next. Hopefully, it's somewhere that's just willing to allow them to finish a show.
Yeah,
like Gravity Falls was able to
Gravity
finish.
Falls
I know it
did
was able to finish, but like a lot of the other stuff he's been involved with since then has generally gotten canceled. No offense to him, that's not his fault by any means. It just
And to
sucks
be honest,
that's the case.
though, again, but stuff like Amphibia did finish. Owl House did finish, even if they kind of butchered the last season.
I guess. Let's get into that. Let's ask this question, right? Without spoil, I don't think we need to spoil anything to ask this question.
No, it's very non-spoiler.
Do you walk away from season 3? Do you walk away from this satisfied?
Overall, I would say yes. Overall, yes. I walked away satisfied. And I will say right now, without spoiling much, while I can tell where the corners have been cut, Well, I can tell where like when you watch the season, you could tell where exactly
Things had to be
full
dropped.
episodes would have happened if
Mm.
they would have gotten the full 20 something episode season. I didn't feel like anything was missing. Everything felt, to the best it could have been, in my opinion, with that season. So, despite we can talk for hours about how badly Disney treated this show,
Mm.
how and how terrible they are, and how homophobic they might be. We can talk about it until the cows come home. When push comes to shove, Dana and her team had honestly an impossible task ahead of them, and they
It's
passed with
true.
flying colors.
I I disagree to a degree. Like I do agree with you. I can tell where they had to just say, "Hey, we only have 3 episodes and so much time. This has to be dropped. This has to be dropped. This has to be dropped." And so they dropped it, right?
Mhm.
I get it, but like even still, for me personally, I walk away from this somewhat dissatisfied. Like that final episode, just the way everything ends, it feels. And I kind of get it. It's this kind of show. It was kind of always going to, but it feels way too nice, way too neat, and it feels like this is the ending we have to do because we need an ending because this is all we're getting.
Well, again, when I'm saying they did the bad,
Oh,
they
absolutely,
passed
I
with
agree.
flying colors.
They did the best they absolutely could. I
Yeah,
completely agree.
I will again for the record. I know that this season isn't perfect, but and I know it's not an excuse. It's like when people say about the Legend of Korra that like, oh, Nickelodeon treated them poorly behind the scenes, and like they gave, when they told them it's only gonna be one season, and then they asked more, so all the writing problems is the network, and it's like that's the thing though, it's the network's fault, and I'm not saying this to diss any of the creators or the writers behind the show. No way. But at the same time, whoever is at fault doesn't really matter if the final product isn't up to snuff. And at least with the Owl House, I'll say that season 3 of the Owl House is better than season 2 of Korra. Okay, the season 2 of Korra can be a mess, at least the first half of it.
That's fair.
But with that being said, I don't think anyone was ever in the Owl House's position, like we talked about. I don't think anyone was ever in this position of like, listen, you're only
No.
getting three 45 minutes, 50-minute specials. That's all you get to wrap up your season. Again, you basically need to wrap up, an entire show in 2.5 hours. Have fun. You this wasn't going to be without its problems, but for all its fault, I could live with some of the problems because the bigger picture left me satisfied.
Yeah, like again, I personally walk away a little bit dissatisfied, but I do have to admit some of that might come from the fact that I would have liked to have seen more. I would have liked to have seen those things that were dropped not get dropped, but I'm stuck with what I got. And this is not like oh, the crew behind this sucks because they weren't able to give me more. Like I fully respect that they made the best of this situation that they could and they did the best with it that they could, right? And I just, in spite of all of that, though, I just still walk away somewhat disappointed myself. Not because it's bad, just because
Because at the same
I wanted
time,
more. I guess
this
I'm
is actually a
selfish
question
and
I want to
greedy.
ask you: is walking away wanting more necessarily a bad thing? Regardless of the consequences behind the cut, behind the split, behind everything, would you say that walking away from something, wanting more, is a bad or a good thing? Because there could be arguments for both sides.
I'm gonna say yes and no.
Well, the pussy way out, I see.
I'm a coward. No, I think it's very dependent on like a very per a per case basis, right? where you can't really say yes to everything and you can't really say no to everything. I think in this instance, I would say no, it's not necessarily a bad thing. But for me personally, I do kind of feel like it's a bad thing because I can see by watching this where they wanted to do more, right? You can tell it. It's not hard to tell, like, okay, this thing that, they've done here, this would have been a full episode by itself, just about, or like half of an episode, or like a plot B to the plot A of the main episode, blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah, right?
and
You get it.
when we get to spoilers eventually, we'll talk about where we think stuff would have been full episodes.
But based off of that, right, it feels to me like, yeah, I would say this is kind of a bad thing that I'm walking away wanting more because I didn't get what I think would have felt like the complete story, the complete, experience, I guess we'd say, that they wanted to give me, right? And so I'm left wanting to some degree. Like, I can end this and walk away and, it's fine. I'm not hurting, but it just kind of sucks, if you will. Like, that's
I
my
understand
take.
what you mean. Yeah, like
I'm just greedy.
Again, I get what you mean, though. I just thought I'll bring this up because some people would say that sometimes wanting more is a good thing because then the show didn't outweigh, outside its welcome. But in this case, I think the show needed a bit more time to overstay its welcome because the welcome wasn't long enough. We wanted more because there was more to say, there was more to do, and half of it was just taken away. But
A
again,
good
though,
comparison, right? I walked away from The Last of Us. I don't need a season 2 for that. If they give me a season 2, that's fine, but
well, they
I don't
will
care.
because
I
there's
mean, I know
another
they will.
game, but that's
I understand that, but like I can walk away from The Last of Us with one season and say, done. I'm happy with that. Just like dust the hands. I'm good. I don't need any more. That was filling. That was just fine. That was great. This, I walk away and I'm like, yeah, I kind of there's some more there. I know there is. I can tell it, and I kind of want that more, but I didn't get it, and it kind of sucks. Doesn't mean it's bad. Just it sucks that I didn't get it.
understandable. I get what you mean. So overall, though, no spoilers yet. What would you say your overall stance is on season 3? Like good,
Ignoring,
bad.
ignoring, the I'm left with a little bit wanting. Ignoring Disney being head
Disney.
so far up their own ass that it's I don't know how they see the sun ever. It was good. I enjoyed it. I had fun with it. I think there was nothing really wrong with
It's a rumor that Disney doesn't see the sun. They see it, and whenever they do, it's covered by two black ears
it.
because they are so far up their own ass because they probably think the sun is turning into a Mickey Mouse head.
Possible. Very possible. Would not be surprised.
Yeah, but anyway.
But yeah, like I had fun with it. This was good. I will say I don't understand why they needed to, like, hey, we're going to release the first episode, it basically put them up, like release them and stagger the release for them by months. I watched this as it aired. I did not binge it.
Yeah,
do not recommend. Just binge it. But I did.
Actually, on that note, this is kind of, I think, again, because in case, for those of you who don't remember, they had this like big hiatus with season 2. I wasn't necessarily there for season 1, but for season 2, they had this big hiatus in the middle of the season where, like, I think it was almost a whole year, I want to say, between when the two halves aired. And a friend of mine from real life actually told me, "Listen, what's up with this? What's up with this break? It literally damaged my viewing experience." And I tell her, this is just how network TV works. Sometimes they just decide, you know what, you're not getting a new episodes for the whole year. Deal with it.
Yeah,
Cope.
it was about
Uh,
7 months between episode 10 of season 2 and episode 11,
Yeah.
and
So,
it's
but the thing
crazy.
is that, and I understand that I understand that networks do that sometimes because they need to fill in certain time slots with their
Mhm.
programming. But it's also you need and I guess when you're so used, and in this day and age when you're so used to streaming, and everything either just gets uploaded on a weekly or daily basis to your favorite streaming service, or just having the entire season drop on the same day, and you can watch the episodes whenever you're comfortable with. It is kind of eyebrow raising. Why stick with this format? Unless the episodes weren't already at the same time, which I understand, but also also a bit weird.
Insert the Mr. Krabs money meme here.
I get you could say money as much as you want, but wouldn't you make maybe something? Maybe it's to create more hype so that each episode could bring in the views. And if you
There's
do it and if you do this with a binge, it's not necessarily gonna bring the same views. I'm not totally sure.
I'm not a business person, I'm not a TV network person, so obviously I can't give you a definitive answer, but there's definitely, I would assume they have this thing down like probably to a science where they know what they need to do and when they need to do it to maximize viewer count and ad revenue and blah 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 blah. Now, as someone who grew up with the TV network generation before we had streaming, it fucking sucked. I personally fucking hate it. That's why I will tell you constantly on this show, and I have mentioned it many times in the past. I personally dislike the week to week release. I will continue to dislike it for all of my days. I grew up with it. I still hate it. I hated it then. I hate it now. It's not good. Ever. Binging is
I
more my speed because I get to watch things when I want to watch them, how I want to watch them. And I can ignore all of you people out there, and I don't have to worry about going online and getting spoiled about shit and having to like, fuck, now I need to go watch it before everyone starts
that's
running
a
their mouth.
problem. That's still a problem because then you get
It's
those idiots who actually stay up all night to watch it when it
it's
drops, and it's like,
well, hi, I'm one of those idiots. I stay up all night to watch that shit when it drops sometimes.
oh, well, well, I'm not one to talk because late at night for you guys is like 10 a.m. for me whenever those streaming services update. So I'm just waking up, I'm grabbing breakfast, and then I sit down to watch it, and it feels good.
I'm sure. This is why we hate you, Mr. Fucking
Ah,
time zones.
okay. Hey, I blame me for being born on not your country. What can you do?
Solution:
So,
get rid of every
so
other country.
anyway, our house. So season 3 overall, I would say you can tell where the cuts were made.
Yeah,
We know why the cuts were made. We know that the crew had nothing to do with this. But overall,
ignoring that,
despite
right? It's
ignoring that though, ignoring that, and despite some itsy bitsy like maybe problems that I can point out when we start talking about the episodes in more detail, I overall thought it was a worthy finish, and I would still say that between the sister brother shows of like a Gravity Falls, Amphibia, I would still say that Our House is my favorite from those three,
ooh,
but that's just me.
I have not watched Amphibious, so I can't like say for certain. But so far, I think I would agree. Owl House was my personal favorite as well.
I will say I'm not sure. Maybe you'll be different than me, but I think Amphibia is my. Not to say that Amphibia is bad by any means. I love Amphibia, right? Amphibia is great. Watch it. Anyone, you and everyone else who haven't watched Amphibia, watch Amphibia. It's great.
Good to know.
But I would say that from those three, it's the one that's my least favorite, just because I can kind of point out more problems with it when I'm looking back at the whole experience.
That's fair.
And as opposed to the Owl House, it got its full third season, so there's that too.
Fuck you, Disney.
Yeah. If anything, you know what? I think in a way, maybe because of Disney. I'm not sure if there's any cover story about that. Let me know, anyone who might know. But I in some ways, season 3 of Amphibia felt like they kind of had to combine a season 3 with a season 4.
Possible.
But again, this is just how I feel. I have no proofs to prove that. I have no idea. This is just a general feeling. But all right, guess what? We are like almost an hour into this podcast, and we're only now starting to talk spoilers. Like, holy shit!
It's
Uh,
fine.
So, spoilers for the Outlaw season 3. In case you haven't seen it, spoilers are starting now. So, if you haven't seen it, close the video, go watch it, and come back to the podcast later to hear us talk about the spoilery stuff. So, with that said, the spoilers start in 3, 2, 1. Still here? Good. Luz dies.
Not wrong, technically.
That's the joke. It's technically not wrong, but it's obviously not the way the show is gonna end. But do
if
you
it
want to
did-
actually talk about each special on its own, or do you want to?
I think you can do either, but I think like they all three go together well. Obviously,
Yeah.
I'll admit I don't remember much from the first one or the second one because it's been so long for me. I will admit. Like I said, don't watch these as they air. Binge them. You'll be better off for it. I'm sure some of you probably listening to this have already done so. I recommend binging it. But I do remember like the first one I thought was a really great start. You know, first episode, right? I loved seeing like them do the Halloween stuff. That was fun. I loved seeing like everyone in the human world and having to, you know, change up because it was a fun idea to have like, hey, you know, we've had Luz getting used to and familiarizing herself with the witch world, the Boiling Isles. Now let's have all of these witches and, you know, everything come over here to the human world and have to get used to everything. It's a fun dichotomy. It's enjoyable.
I
And they do
have
well
to.
with that.
I just want to say, on a side note, I'm glad we got to hear Sonic the Hedgehog in that show one more time. That's just a completely random thing, but I'm gonna point it out because it was super funny to me in the last season. Anyway, to this thing, I agree. Actually, I do also like that. Before we even get to those things, we have this really is what felt like a very real, very heartwarming, very very well balanced sequence of what happened after Camilla opened that door and she sees her daughter back with formal magical creatures, and and then she just tries to take everything they told her at this moment, and Hunter also having to deal with his own PTSD from the entire thing, and just Camila willingly letting them all in, either because she's grateful that they took care of her daughter or because she is just a nice person. Either one works, and just Hunter bowing down to her to thank her for hospitality, and she's like, "Yeah, please don't do that again."
No,
And
they do great with that. Like there's a lot of the dichotomy there is so great. Like it's so well done character wise. Even like
also
Luz
when
coming out as bi to her mom, right? Like,
we get to it, but I'm just talking about the very first few minutes of this season. After the intense season 2 finale with the collector and everything, and suddenly you get this, and then V's trying to teach Willow and Amity about alarm clocks, and they destroy the fucking thing, and and it ends with this really great moment of like where Camilla tells Luz, "It's okay, you're home now," and Luz goes, "I am, but they're not," and it kind of has this looming experience of, yeah, like she's right, they are not home, and now their big project is to try to get them home. And I guess you could say this is the main plot of the episode, or at least a plot B to some extent. And then we get the montage. All of this entire montage is full of episode ideas that would have been full episodes.
listen,
But
I won't lie. I would have loved to have seen a fucking whole season of just this shit. Just
Yeah,
Camilla. Fuck, I can't pronounce her fucking name.
Camilla, yeah.
Camilla being best fucking mom and just like adopting all these fucking kids. It was great, and I would have loved to have seen more of that. We didn't get
Actually,
that.
there is the joke. There is the joke where she says, "I never expected to be a mother of six." That line is just beautiful. And yeah, and I like how the very first thing we see is actually the coming out. This the where Luz telling her, "Hey, hi, I'm bi," and Camila just accepts it. She accepts that her daughter has a girlfriend, and she's super happy for it. And ever since then, if you notice, she's walking with the rainbow sticker, with the LGBTQ sticker. That's cool.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I agree.
Other than that, we also get now that Luz is back, V obviously can pose as Luz, so she has her own appearance. That was nice. I like that design. And obviously we get some outfit wearing. By the way, I'm not sure if you've seen, because they screened this montage at Comic-Con before the entire special aired. Like, you need to it was almost like watching an Avengers movie on opening day. People were like, characters just breathed and everyone was losing their minds and cheering. Look it up on YouTube, it's
I'm
amazing.
aware.
And
I get it.
another part that I found really wholesome is, in the Burning Isles, the rain is acid. Like, it would melt you. So it was nice to see these characters experience rain for the first time in that montage. That was really nice.
Yeah.
And of course, by the way, Willow and Hunter are canon. I'm not accepting any other answer.
Fair, very fair.
Um, And I guess the one thing I would say about this first special, which for the record I really love. It was a great way to introduce us to the season, and even though you can tell what the cuts were made, it it was done really well. I just want to say, Luz's arc in this episode, feeling guilty about essentially enabling Bellows, and just her entire self doubt with itself, and especially when Camila sees her video logs over the years, that shit hurt. That
Agreed.
I would say that obviously she's a girl, I'm a boy, but Luz is one of those. I think is one of those characters I related to the most. Like, if I have to pick a character that I would say this was me, oh, this is me, Luz would be one of my first picks. Like, maybe alongside Hiccup from How to Train a Dragon. But the point is, I relate to this kid so much, and her and her entire arc in this episode, and also thinking, what would my friends think if they know that I'm the one who let Bellows loose? What if they find out that I'm the reason they're here? That that is like, that's anxiety 101. That's ouch. I feel for this kid.
That's fair. That's very fair. Like, again, I agree. It's extremely well done and it's very enjoyable. Like, everything about it is just, wow, so good. Wish we had more of it.
Yeah, we know, but
But most important part, Flapjack dies in this episode
this was
because
painful.
we can't be done with Bellows just yet. He's back and he's in the human world too. Shock
Yeah,
surprise.
well, honestly, they did imply it because we saw a bit of his goop thing fall down on Hunter before they transported. So yeah. Also, by the way, Hunter, I want to give this guy a hug. I want to, be best friends with him. He's so precious.
Yeah, it's definitely him and Luz for the first episode have a lot going on. I would say throughout this and throughout season 3, you'll see focus on Hunter and Luz especially, and then you get a little bit less on them too for the second episode, where it switches over to focusing a bit more on Willow and stuff she's
And
going
I
through.
guess I could say King.
I guess, yeah, King to a degree as well. And it feels like, unfortunately, Gus and Amity take a bit of a back seat for this season.
Well, they do enough with them,
Oh no,
honestly.
they're
That comes to
there.
me.
They do things. It's just like, as far as character development goes, the focus is definitely on Luz, Hunter, Willow, and King, I would say.
Because I also think, though, that in terms of what the final season is about, which is kind of confronting your insecurities and standing out on your own. I think Comedy and Gus already kind of went through this.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
not to say that I don't get you, but I can kind of feel, well, if we have such a short in time, and this is what, and we have to work with this. This is our team.
Oh no,
These are not the characters to do this with. Like
yeah, absolutely, I agree.
those are-
They made the right choice here and the right call. Like, they focused on the characters they needed to focus on most, and that's a perfectly fine call to make. Like, it doesn't matter that, like, Amity's development and story can be more tied into Luz. Gus takes a bit more of a back seat, but that's not a problem. There's nothing wrong with that per se, because he's pretty much solved his problems. He's there to be, to a degree, like the help for the other characters, right? He's there to help lift up Hunter and Willow to some degree. Like, that's more his role this season, and that's fine.
Yeah.
They made the right choice to focus on those three especially.
Agreed. And I guess with that said, but for I would also say that this was a very Camilla season, because we see just how much like her daughter she is, being in terms of fandom and being in terms of her own worries and
Yeah,
her own.
we learn about the cosmic frontier, the Star
Mhm.
Trek ripoff. Camilla used
Yeah.
to be a fan.
I guess we all have those fandom things that things we are big fans of, and we are ashamed of it. So
Shame.
that
Fuck that. I have no shame. Fuck you.
some part I do have shame, but other stuff, like I mean, how many times have I gone on this podcast and said that Sonic the Hedgehog is my favorite character?
Listen,
Shame is not something I do not have shame. Okay.
you're a Sonic fan, so fair. But once you hit 30, you realize, fuck it. Once you get past 30, you're definitely, fuck it.
Did I mention that I turned 30 right now on the day we record this?
Well, happy birthday. It's
thank
the birthday podcast for HC. Yeah, you lose shame after you hit 30. Just let you know. Like,
Yeah,
you'll
this
get
is
there.
the no shame thing. We're doing a podcast on my freaking birthday, talking about one of my favorite shows on TV right now, and it's about how Disney basically killed it prematurely. It is a lonely existence I live, but that's another story. But anyway, back to episode 1. I just a fun episode, really. Like obviously there are the
It's a
stuff
good
that hits,
start.
like it goes dark, like and also there's the scene where like Hunter is convinced that he saw Bellows, and he asks Luz to accompany him to this warehouse, and he's not there, and he just breaks down crying like, "Fuck, man."
No, like, watching it when it first came out, I was like, all right, this, very much like, I'm hyped to see the rest of these. This is a great start. This is like,
And of course, like
grade A.
everyone I saw this episode with is like, Flapjack. No, why would you do that? And I agree, for the record. Why would they do that? The freaking monsters.
Because someone's got to die.
I guess. Well, at least he got his little memorial thing by the end. Also, by the way, I also like. Okay, you know what? We now have a portal back to the Burning Isles. They all go in. Camilla even goes in, and then I love that. V actually makes a good point that she's gonna stay in the human world to take over for Camilla at her job. And just as they leave, it's like, shit, I forgot the phone.
Yep. Very mom.
Yeah, and so this is basically all we have to do to say about the first episode, I think, unless you have something.
No,
I asked, do you have anything else? Okay.
I'm good.
Okay.
Let's move on. Episode 2.
Episode 2, For the Future. I'll say out of the three, this one is the one that feels like the least because, again, if this were this is the middle act. This is the one that doesn't really move along until a certain thing.
Yeah, this one is, if I'm not mistaken, it's them mostly based in the school doing stuff and just kind of dealing
Mm-hmm.
with oh, what's her name? Sasha?
Basha, yes.
Basha, yeah, the mean girl essentially. And it's
Mm-hmm.
very kind of like, I get it. You know, there's a lot of stuff here that probably would have been its own episodes as well, but it's kind of like it's good for Willow's development, it's good for Hunter's development and kind of getting him past like a lot of the stuff that he was dealing with, you know, and getting past and getting over Flapjack's death and everything, right? But it
I
doesn't.
am so sorry that Jaya is not here at the moment because I can attest when the collector turned Hoodie into toy and she literally screamed Hoodie. Oh!
Yeah, that is right. Like, you know, until you get to the scene where like they start where the collector finds, I believe it's Edith and
Mhm.
Hody, you know, not too much happens. It's okay, just not a lot.
Honestly, because it needs to kind of reintroduce you
Oh
to
no,
the Bunny
that's
Isles. It
well,
needs
yeah.
to it needs to show you what exactly King was doing with the collector and what everyone else has been up to while the main cast was in the human world.
Yeah.
and and to be fair, there are interesting ideas there, but a lot of it fell because this is the second act, so obviously you can't really judge this one until you see the third part. And so for a while this is just what we had, and it's not bad at all, for the record. Like
Mhm.
there are
Mhm.
uh, again, like you said, Willow having her own arc and stuff. I agree that maybe Basha isn't the best villain to go with for like the villain of the episode, but I guess they did again doing what you could. I'm not necessarily. I think I can say that, and also like Camilla reacting to King, that was nice. The exact same reaction as her daughter. But
Mhm.
the main thing I guess we can talk about is more of the collector. We get to know him a bit more, and he's basically a very chaotic, very insane kid.
I do wonder if
Mm-hmm.
their if their plan changed for the collector when they realized they weren't gonna get a full, you know, thing,
Um,
because
I think the main
maybe
thing that
I'm
would have
wrong, but
changed.
I saw a few people mention this and I kind of agree. And maybe,
Mhm.
you know, we're in the wrong in this reading, but it seems like the collector might have the intent for the collector might have been more right, that they weren't just going to be like a chaotic young kid who's
I'll tell
super
you what.
powerful.
You remember to non How to Train a Dragon fans, this might sound odd, but you remember how in the initial plans for How to Train a Dragon 2 were to just kind of foreshadow Drago, and then in the second movie, and then he would be the main villain of the third one.
Mm-hmm.
I think something like this was something similar happened here. We were supposed to like be building up the collector in season 2, but we wouldn't have seen him until season 3. If season 3 would have been the full season it was meant to be. You
Yeah,
get me?
I get you.
N-
And you
But
think we would have been
now
dealing with
after,
Bellos more?
yeah, but then like season 3 got cut, so we had the collector in the showing up near the end of season 2, and now basically season 3 is getting the aftermath of it. And we'll get to the collector more
I
obviously
do.
when we talk about the actual finale. But in terms of For the Dreaming, the second episode of season 3, it seemed a bit like they knew what they were aiming for, but at the time it aired, and when we needed to wait to see where this was going, it felt like it didn't do much to really explain him, which I get you want to save the backstory, but it also felt a bit like, okay, so he's a chaotic kid and King is trying to hold him over. Where's the conflict necessarily?
Mm. I guess right. It's the conflict is he's super powerful and he just doesn't really think about his powers in relation to people who aren't as powerful as he is. Right? Is the
Yeah,
idea?
I get that's the thing, and the third episode explains it wonderfully, and I love it there. But until we get there, this is all you kind of need to fill in the blanks.
To some degree, yeah, I agree. And also, at least for me, watching this episode as it aired and then waiting the months to for the
By
third
the
episode to come
way,
out,
did you see it when it leaked, or did you see it when it officially aired?
I watched it when it leaked.
Oh,
So it was even
because
further
like
behind.
talk about controversies with this season. Yeah, that also happened.
Yeah, and I'm impatient and didn't wait because the first episode was like, "Hey, this is really good. Where are you going with this one?" Watch the second one. I completely forgot everything from the second one when the third one came out. I will admit. I remember bits and pieces, but not a lot. I can remember more from the first one, and I think that kind of attests to the second one doesn't feel as there's a lot that's not as important in the second one, right? In my opinion.
Mhm.
Not that the second episode is bad, but just that it feels more forgettable. At least to me, it did.
Mhm. So that being said, I know that Jaya is gonna jump in at any second now, according to what she says. But I guess moving on to episode 3, in a way, probably the strongest of the episodes, but
Yeah.
also I get this is the
I
one
mean,
where
listen,
I
I've been
think I
saving
can.
this. Titan Luz is so fucking cute. I'm sorry, she just is. Like that's fucking
What
adorable.
what is it? Can you repeat that? I didn't hear.
Titan Luz is just so fucking cute. It's adorable. Like
Oh, I'm not sure if I would call it cute, but that's a badass design.
it's adorable. Like I think it's cute. Just
Mhm.
it's adorable. She's adorable. Titan Luz is fucking adorable, and that could have been an entire thing for like a full season, which would have been great. And we didn't get that shit. Fuck you, Disney.
Word.
Mhm. Oh, hi Jaya.
And hey, sorry for the entrance. But I
Mm.
do what's interesting is that Luz's Titan form is foreshadowed in the very first episode. When Ida blackmails her to go into the conformatorium, she puts on her sweatshirt which has cat ears and goes meow meow. And so what's interesting is her Titan form does look very cat-like, teeth and
Mm-hmm.
all.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And so it's foreshadowed that, and other bits of foreshadowing, that Luz's first reaction on seeing King was to pick him up and snuggle him. And one of the Titans' first choices to teach Luz the light glyph, and it's implied that he's the one who's been talking to her in the void between worlds,
Mm-hmm.
is
Very
because
good.
he's been caring for her. She's been caring for his son, who's basically become his big sis, and he's basically become her little brother. So I do
Mhm.
like all the hints that everything from the beginning mattered, including Luz calling King cute and snuggling
Mhm.
him.
Mhm. But
And
before we continue that, Jaya, what is your overall thoughts on season 3? Just so that you don't need to talk about the cancellation. We already went way above and beyond about that. So, just what are your thoughts in general? Because we already kind of discussed the first two specials.
I'm glad we got season 3 because if season 2 had just ended with that shot, I think there probably would have been an angry mob in Orlando, Los
I
Deservedly
Angeles.
mean,
so.
angrier.
Well, angrier. But I feel like season 3, considering what they had to do, I think they did a great job. I've been watching a lot of reviews complaining about stuff that the creators chose to focus on, like Basha and Kikimora, but I actually think it makes sense because you have to acknowledge, yeah, these guys were minor, but they were still threats. And I feel like everyone got screen time relevant to their character arcs. And sure, we could have gotten more, but we could have always gotten more.
Yeah.
And one could hope that if Disney gives us a podcast like they did with DuckTales, maybe we could get the season 3 podcast, maybe an underground witch radio chronicling what's been happening in the Titans realm the whole time that Luz was gone.
We could hope, but I'm
I,
also not holding my breath considering Disney.
I asked this question earlier. I'll ask it of you as well, Jaya. Do you walk away from the Owl House scene, season 3, and with the cancellation and everything? Do you walk away satisfied with what you got, or no?
I am, but also because I'm settling. Because I'm satisfied with what we
Fair.
I because I'm annoyed, but I also know it's not the creator's fault. They
Mhm.
were working and they got dealt with. And it's
Mhm.
not like with it. And it is interesting though that people complained we didn't get enough of the Owl House in season 3, but we got too much of Amphibian season 3. And they said too much time was spent in the human world with all the misadventures that the planters get into. And I disagree. And I feel like you can't have it both ways. You either don't get enough time or you do. And I feel like considering I would have preferred a season 3, and Luz even mentioned she wanted the beach episode. But
Mhm.
but considering everything, I'm pretty satisfied with what we got.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, that is fair indeed. I guess the main question here now is what would you say necessarily you would have asked for? Because we did talk about it earlier. So
I
if
mean,
there's anything,
I mentioned it
no, I
before.
mean to Jaya specifically.
Oh, okay.
What?
Well,
Because we already talked
Fine
about
then.
this. We just need to catch her up.
No.
Just
Woody's
is,
story.
is there anything? Is there anything like you would have necessarily wanted? Like what felt missing to you? You can talk spoilers since we're in the spoilers.
Hootie.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
Because
that's the thing actually. Hootie doesn't talk once in this entire season, and it's like,
well, he does. Because when he and Lilith go to confront the Collector, he shouts out Lulu before protecting her from the Collector's spell.
That's like his one and only line, though.
yeah, and also you could argue it's but I do find it weird because Alex Helge is in the show. He's still voicing King, so like it's not like you lost access to the voice actor or something.
I think it was a case of shoo out the clowns. Even in the direst of situations, Hootie can make things funnier. And so they probably wanted to show how dire things were that Hootie remained a cuckoo clock, a
Mhm.
clock for the
By the
whole
way,
season.
can you confirm that you screamed no when he turned into a toy? Because I mentioned it.
Yes, I screamed no a lot, and I clutched the Hootie plushie you sent me for my birthday very tightly, even though
Yeah.
Infinity or handle with care because he's not machine
Mhm.
control, and he can
Yeah.
be
But
soft.
I will say though, Hootie might have not talked, but he has the most wonderful eyes.
He does.
Fucking
I
Bambi.
also like the implication that
I
that
like
King
how you just agreed with me, but Wolf is cursing under his breath. Like, what are you I'm gonna do the Hootie impression if I want to. Damn it.
I
Banned.
think we need a Hootie backstory, but I'm glad we got a hint, considering he's poking out of the Titan's eye in the realm in between, hinting
Yeah.
that
Voiced by
King's
Igoraptor of all people.
That
but it
was
would
him?
explain why he's so
Yeah.
I
powerful.
did not know that. I thought it was, but I wasn't sure. Huh, that's interesting.
So
Yeah,
it's an
like
implication,
I didn't know either until somebody pointed it out. And it's like, oh,
but it does make
um,
because it would explain why Hootie, despite being a goofball, is actually really good at self-defense and protecting others. And he can turn his body into a helicopter. He can
yeah.
spit out potions like a machine gun. And he can
Mhm.
take a vast amount of damage from people, including Amity when he gets too close in her personal space.
Like I said, Hootie is a clank, and nobody forget that. But I just want to say I kind of like that, because we see Hootie coming out of of Titan's eye, right?
Right.
And they never really explain what the deal with it is, which I do like. I like that there's no explanation. You can just kind of make your own assumptions about the connection. But I just want to say, if Hootie and King are somehow related, this makes the line, "Don't you talk about my mother," much more interesting.
It is, especially since
The
we don't know.
implications that this gave to that line. So, fanfic writers go nuts, please.
Indeed, especially since we already got a Duolingo shipping homage.
Oh yeah,
Which
that was funny. I forgot about that.
it was. It's a shame Hootie never met the owl that threatened the kids if they failed their Spanish lessons. But again, you can't have everything. Maybe we'll get an Owl House short where Luz tries to teach Hootie Spanish and Hootie feels threatened.
Disney does do all the all the Owl House chibis, Amphibia chibis, all the chibi things with the voice actors. So who knows?
So, and the other thing is, one thing I do have mixed feelings about is if the show hadn't been reduced, we wouldn't have gotten the Collector, which I think was the best new addition. Because the Collector is basically a polar opposite of Bill Cipher, the way that King
Yeah.
is. Because it's establishing Gravity Falls that releasing Bill is a bad idea. You can't reason with him. You can only outsmart him and hope you don't get
And give
killed.
him Simpsons cameos for some reason. I still don't get that.
Well, Disney wants to make money. So.
Mhm.
But what's interesting is King and the Collector are polar opposites of Bill. And it's established that in the long term, even though it had short term consequences in the Boiling Isles, King releasing the Collector was ultimately the right thing to do. Because the Collector, and I knew it because the Collector has all this talk. But what was his first thing he did when he was freed? He saved the kids from Bellows.
I do.
He did not understand the concept of death, but he understood what was going on was not fair. And the Collector is chaotic, but he has a sense of fairness, of what is right and what isn't.
Mm-hmm.
I did bring this up to HC earlier. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it as well. I asked, I wonder if the creators behind the show, right? I wondered if their plans for the Collector changed when they learned that they weren't going to be getting like the full seasons that they thought they were going to be getting. When they learned that, oh, we're only getting 3 episodes for season 3, and then that's it. I do wonder, do you think their plans for the Collector changed, or do you think the Collector's always been meant to be what we got?
Well, because what I heard was Bellows was supposed to be the main villain through and through. We weren't even supposed to get the Collector. So if season 3 had gone on as planned, it would have been Bellows being an evil little bitch.
Fair.
And we wouldn't have gotten this chaotic godchild that has to learn what death is and has one of these.
So this kind of shows what I was saying earlier in the food, because I said I think there was like a How to Train a Dragon 2-3 Drago situation going on, if you know what I mean. But
more like Steven Universe, because I feel the Drago thing wasn't handled as well as the Collector innocently trying to make peace with Bellows. Because it felt more like it wasn't a jab at Steven Universe, because you can see the Owl House pays a lot of love to Steven Universe, its predecessor.
I do want to say, I have to say, when this happened, I watched the finale 3 times, and I watched it with my girlfriend as soon as this happened, as soon when the Collector just flew to like a Godzilla Bellows and tried to hug him and everything. She's like, no, like she knew what was gonna happen. She knew this wasn't gonna end all willy nilly just because it's like, yeah, come here, and then when it's like, well, yeah. And then she screamed no again for what happens shortly after, as you know.
Believe me, I did too.
You could spoil it. Luz dies.
I believe you because I watched the episode with you too, and I as well. I heard all of your reactions because I'm like, I want to hear these people cry like I cried. I'm an evil monster sometimes. I'm aware.
I cried when Titan Dad died because old man.
Mm-hmm.
Always gotta love the old guys. I'm old, that's my input.
But also, King's dad used his last bit of strength to bring Luz back to life as she was. And what's interesting is the parallel to when Bellows possessed Hunter. He did it with trickery and gaslighting him. Here, King's dad says, I can give you my powers, but you have to accept it. I'm not going to force you.
I mean, it's great. As I said, we get Titan Luz, which is adorable and badass all at the same time. Loved it. Loved that design. Wish we had more of it.
Luz, but she's still goofy. When she comes back, she tries to come up with something dramatic and epic to say. And they realize that her because only Luz is that goofy, even when given the power of a god. And I will say, the thing that hurt me more than Luz fading, was the collector's reaction. Because King and Ida immediately realize what happened and they go on the warpath. Ida willingly lets the Owl Beast go. And you could tell they would have destroyed Bellows if they could, but they just weren't strong enough. The King's only a that there is one other thing I wanted the show to address: Ida's curse and how the collector, because the collector was responsible for trapping the Owl Beast in the first place, and they never tell us about that. They only know the Titan. We only know the Titan reacts visceral. That the Owl Beast reacts viscerally on seeing the collector. It would have been nice to see that, to see what exactly happened, and I'm glad that with Ida's curse they didn't remove it. There was no cure. Even with the most powerful god like
If
Ida.
anything, it seems like they just she just lives with it, and also that Lilith, just accepted her own curse as well. They just live with it.
But what I was to see Ida getting some of her powers back. Not all, some. Because if the collector had just put an Iron Man thing on her bile sac so she could do magic and play with him. Like Ida with an arc reactor and an Iron Man suit made by Alex. I'm just saying. They gave her a golden hook, gave her the full suit, and had her sound effects.
But I guess you can't win it all, and I guess the technology in the body now isn't quite Iron Man levels yet.
Yeah, I mean they have the Abomatons are pretty Iron Man like when Kikamura uses them. She has a Hulk Buster.
Yeah,
But I mean,
basically my point is that's one other thing I would have liked to see addressed. Talking about the curse's backstory in more detail. It doesn't have to be a cure, just an explanation.
Yeah, I think for me it would be a bit more of that, a bit more of, I would have enjoyed seeing more of like Bellows and his brother and how that connected to Hunter more. But like I think they focused on the right thing when it came to Hunter. I don't think focusing on Hunter's connection to Bellows and Bellows's backstory with like his brother and all of that, I don't think that would have been as enjoyable. And I don't think it would have worked for what we've got here, right? If we were getting a more full season or potentially 2 more full seasons, as it looks like that might have been the case based on what we've got here, it would have been fine to do that. But with what we got, I think I disagree with most people, and I think they focused on the things they needed to focus on for the most part, ignoring everything with Basha and the school.
Yeah, which was
it
also
was
dark
fine,
and funny.
but it was, I think that was the one time where they kind of dropped the ball a little bit in terms of what they did, ignoring everything with Disney, just their focus. I think that was where they dropped the ball a little bit. I get it. I understand why you did it. It gives us an understanding of everything that's been going on with the Boiling Isles and why it's all pretty bad, but it's like not as good as the first episode. And then the later half of that second episode, that part just isn't as good, in my opinion.
Yeah, but going back to the third episode, the finale, we haven't really talked about it yet, but the collector's backstory.
Yep, and we finally got answers. Like, I appreciate, because you seem very blasé about playing with King's Egg.
Also, who taught this kid about Pac-Man?
King.
Oh,
probably.
Probably Luz, then King. Luz taught King, and King taught.
Yeah, like let's say I'm not sure if somebody taught. I blame Luz for the Monkey Ball reference. Like, there's no way King would have known why about Super Monkey Ball.
But Marvel, like I'm sure she gave King her phone at certain points, and.
But at the same time, I just want to say, when King rolls that ball around, this was Super Monkey Ball. You can't tell me otherwise. I see you. People who played other Sega games besides Sonic, I see you. But okay. Anyway, Pac-Man was obvious. Obviously the bolting was more marbles, but come on. And then the third one was like this was the most random one I feel like in terms of games. And then, but to go back to the entire chaotic child thing, I was really impressed with how they just managed to make the entire motivation of, oh, game pieces break, but I can fix them afterwards, to show just how much he doesn't get it, because that's a really kid thing to say. This is a really kid. This is a kid's way of thinking. That's
Well,
so clever.
it's very kid-like in the terms of like this is a person with unlimited power and can do literally anything, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
this is a godchild, and to them, we are the playing pieces, right? Not like an actual
Yeah.
toy. They did it
Mm-hmm.
very well. I agree. Like it's very quick.
And then the backstory. Obviously, let's be honest again. This backstory would have been a full episode if
Yeah.
this was a full season.
Mm-hmm.
Project
But
backstory.
yeah, but at the same time, they just got it out fast, quick, but in an impactful way. Like it didn't feel like, oh, I need an episode about this. It's like I could see an episode all around this, but it was it was done really well. Like you get this kid even more now, and in a way you are terrified of him even more.
I mean, I wasn't terrified of him once he let loose talk to him, because you could tell he was losing it, but kind of remind me almost of Flowey in Undertale when you spare him at the end of the battle. He says, I
Oh my, that's
understand.
oh, but yes, I get you.
So I do feel with the Collector, I appreciate he didn't actually wipe out the Titans, despite what the Titan Trapper said. It wasn't him. Of all the terrible things he did not commit Titan genocide, at least as far as we know, on purpose.
Well, it
Mm.
was it was the other collectors, right? Like the ones who raised
Yeah,
him.
the archivists. I think
Yeah, the
that's the name.
archivists, essentially other collectors, I suppose you would say. Like they're the ones who wiped out the Titans, right? Because they feared the power. Which is an interesting take, right? Because if the collector is also an archivist, it's interesting in that the people he comes from are the ones who killed the Titans, but he didn't want to do that. But he didn't understand what they were doing and why they were doing it.
But they left him to the heat, and it's also confirmed they were his siblings, which that explains a lot about him.
Mm-hmm. By the way, I'm putting money on this now. In a few years, people are going to say that all the people who are deeming themselves collectors, like either of video games or plushies or whatever, they are gonna be called archivists in a few years. See how this thing is gonna take over. Try. I'm calling it now.
I hope so. I want to get a collector cosplay ready for Halloween this season.
Good luck with that. Anyway, so we talked about, by the way, hints at the spin-off of Ida's early days in Hexside with Lilith being our team captain. I want to see that. Give me that, please. I know you want Disney, but I can hope.
I mean, getting into it, I think we've talked about the episodes enough. Unless anyone has any last things they'd like to add.
I guess just to say about the epilogue, about the entire ending bit. I am glad that there's a way for Luz to keep coming into the Burning Isles, and that I don't get me wrong, kind of spoilers to Amphibia here, kinda. Well, I liked Amphibia's sad ending and the goodbyes there and stuff. I'm also happy that we didn't have to do the exact same thing like with Gravity Falls and that there doesn't not everything has to end with a goodbye. Sometimes it's nice that there's a way to for the main hero to connect the two worlds,
But
right?
this
So
did end with a goodbye, though.
Hmm?
This did end with a goodbye, though, HC.
That's what I'm saying.
But not to. But I think what the difference is that in Amphibia, Anne never wanted to go on this adventure. She just wanted to celebrate her birthday and not lose her friends. And that's what made it more poignant. that she realized she got what she wanted, but there would be a price. And what's interesting is Sprig, Pop warned Sprig about this, but Sprig also pointed out we thought we were going to say goodbye to Anne at the end of season 2 when he was tossed out a window. And so he'll be fine with waiting until that decision happens because they have the boss for the moment.
Yeah.
They have
But I mean more. But I mean, But I did like the idea that there was no choice that needed to be made, because they do build up that Luz might,
I get you.
if Luz was given the choice, she said that she would go back to the human realm after the entire scandal is over. But they found ways to, Camilla and Luz bought the house where the portal is, and that's
and
and Luz apparently helped them rebuild for years. Like when we see everyone they've been together throughout this entire time. So I'm just happy that and Luz is going to college in Hex. She's going to the Hexside College, which is nice. I enjoy the fact that there doesn't have to be a goodbye at the end of every show. Sometimes you can find a middle way. I
That's fair.
appreciate
Okay, I
that.
get what you're saying now when you say goodbye. I get you. That's fair. There doesn't always have to be like, hey, we've made our choice. Let's end it all now. It's kind of somber. No, this is a bit happier note. I get that. That's fair.
I, because I think it's also the fact that it was a human that caused this much damage to the Boiling Isles, and so it had to be to fix it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why it felt fitting. Like, it's still not without its price. It's mentioned Luz worked through 3 of her birthdays and Mr. Quinceañera. So there's still a price. We also don't know.
I do like that they followed Camilla's instructions, not the best way, and Camilla's like, "Yeah, great job, everyone."
But Camilla at this point, she's just like, she's kind of used to it.
She's just out here trying to be best mom. I get it. It's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess two last things for me before kind of wrapping it up, I suppose, is that in the final battle, when Luz finishes Bellows off the same way, her favorite character would, that suck on the sucker. That was great. Like the animation, just and also the way they just kill Bellows by stepping on his puddle, and and all that. That's just something. Yeah, fuck him. He deserved that.
But what's interesting is the fact that he assumed Luz would be the one to kill him, and Luz, the look on Luz's face, he wasn't worth her time anymore.
Well,
like
it was a very
just like, bye.
It was a very quick thing of like, for me, I took it as a thing of she still potentially couldn't really do it. She wasn't capable of it necessarily still yet, even after everything he had done. And that's the fact that they have Bellows play on her, on her better nature, right? And trying to, trying to like, hey, you won't do it. I'm better now. I'm saved now, right? You don't need to kill me. And then she just kind of steps back and lets the Boiling Rain do it, and everyone else do that.
And what's
right?
interesting is the Boiling Rain's supposed to be lethal for humans, but you notice it falls on Luz, hinting that the Titan was protecting her from it. Which was very fascinating, considering Ida's first reaction when Luz wanted to watch the Boiling Rain was toss her inside, saying, "You're safe now." So it almost was one last gift from his dad. The other thing I like is the fact that Bellows at that point was restored to his original form. I don't think he was, because we know he can shapeshift.
Yeah.
But the other interesting thing is that she pities him, but not the kind of pity where you feel sorry for someone with a tragic backstory. It's a cold pity.
Yeah.
As in, you could have chosen something different, and I mourn that, but I don't mourn you.
Yeah.
I agree.
Like, I want what you've become, but I don't want you. It's like,
that's fair. Well,
but
overall,
episode 2 basically foreshadowed this ending, because remember, in Witches Before Wizards, an older guy tricked Luz into thinking she was helping people and was using her for his own ends. She ended up saving herself, as well as Ida and King, And Ida ends up delivering the coup de grace in that by swallowing the guy in cephalopod form. So basically, we got this foreshadowing all the way back in season 1, which was nice.
Agreed.
A final
And
question.
and Susan's kind of grossed out that Ida ate that guy like sushi, but here she's just calm.
Yeah. Well, a final question before we end everything off. Say, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Dana Terrace is not involved with Disney and probably doesn't want to be involved with Disney ever again in the future.
No,
But
she,
with
as
that,
I mentioned at the start when we were talking about the cancellation, she seems very bitter about Disney.
So with that in mind, if Disney came out and said, "Hey, like we did fuck up. We're going to do more Owl House stuff." Would you be interested in more Owl House stuff from Disney, knowing that Dana Terrace is probably not going to be involved?
I think it depends on what necessarily. And Dana Terrace not necessarily being involved with it doesn't mean it's gonna be bad necessarily, but it also depends on what you're gonna do with it. Because okay, let's assume, right? Let's assume we are getting a spin-off of any kind, right? Be
Like
it a
a
prequel or
lose
a
at
sequel.
a lose in college thing, right? College lose, right?
Not necessarily even a college lose, but like let's even say, because lose does a hint at that, about that's a spin-off I would watch. Let's assume we're getting something about like Ida's days in Hexside, or maybe even do the Legend of Korra thing, like or to bear. I can't believe I'm about to make this reference, but that other show that should not be named, something with 9. Those who get it. You can do something with the idea of like people, a future generation in Hexside, or just how the the combination of what happens to the portal after Luz is no longer there, right? Do people know about the burning house? Do the burning house ever cross over to the human world? You can do something with this, or you could just have an entirely different medium. Like you can make this, you can do comic books, you can do a video game, you could do a lot of things. It's just all depends on the core idea. If Dana Terrace is involved, different story. She doesn't have to be in order for it to be good, but maybe it would still feel like something is missing without the creative head behind it.
That's fair.
Yeah, selfishly, I'd want Disney to hire us to write stories for an anthology, just so we can make our fanfiction canon. Like, you know what I'd like to write about? I'd like to write about Hootie rebuilding his relationship with Lilith after being recruited, or Lou celebrating Principal Bump's retirement party. Something like that.
But at the same time, these are some things that I can kind of see, like maybe in the what you may call it, like in the like as a chibi short on YouTube or something, not necessarily as a full-on show.
Well, hence anthology short story, pro stuff, and there's like 600 years of the Boiling Isles to cover, or Lou's pass her SATs, considering how much of the start of high school she missed.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Well,
I mean, let's be clear, right? It's Disney. We're probably not going to get any of these things. They're pretty much very adamant. Once they make a choice, they don't go back on it, even if they do realize, oh, we fucked up, because they fucked up. But
you can never know what will happen in a few years, right?
Fair.
Just because it's done for now doesn't mean.
Yep, Gravity Falls ended, but we got a Gravity Falls graphic novel with extra stories.
And also, again, maybe not the best comparison, but DuckTales. This was done and over with back then. Suddenly, 30 years later, we got this reboot. So you may never know when Luz can come back whenever we least expect it.
I can't wait 30 years, HC. I'll be 60. I might not be alive by then.
That's the thing, though. I can't tell you if it's gonna be 30 years. It can be 3 years. We may never know.
Well, let's hope it's not 3 years, because some shows are already being rebooted and they're not that old, like Ben 10.
Yeah.
And so it's like, dude, we don't need more. Like, I respect that they're keeping Tara Strong employed, but also, dude, they don't need to keep doing this.
Well, honestly, Ben 10, I think, is every version of the show canon? I've never watched Ben 10.
I don't think
Yes and no, technically.
but
That explains so much.
point being that point being that if a reboot were to happen, I'd rather it be by people who love the show, and that's why the DuckTales reboot worked. Because
Agreed.
Frank Aragone was a Disney afternoon expert, and you could see it. All these Easter eggs he put in, the tight storytelling and emotions, he filled the gaps that the 1987 DuckTales couldn't do. Like
Mhm.
like Bella's backstory of going to the moon, that comes from the European comics.
Yeah.
Like, who would have thought? And they
Um,
incorporate
and on
that.
that note, I will say I can't really tell you what's gonna happen with the Hull House now that the main show is over. But we mentioned this earlier before you jumped in, Jaya. But I think we can all agree that whatever the next project for Dana Terrace is, we are interested in seeing that whenever it comes out.
And in creators owning their rights to the show, regardless of what
Uh,
happens.
That's sadly that's sadly something that I get what you mean, but unless you're a very big name or you're doing this on Kickstarter or something, it's very hard to keep your own IP if if like you're selling it to a company. That's barely happening.
Well, Dana Terrace, open a Patreon so we can all support your next project.
Yeah, like whatever she's working on next, I'm wishing her the best of luck, and I'm gonna see it whenever it happens, and if I can support her there, I will. But I am also
Agreed.
if she's not doing anything independent, then she can't keep the IP, most
Right.
likely.
Right. She might be taking a break for now, understandably, which is what Alan
Yeah.
Hirsch did after Falls before he contributed to Inside Job and The Mitchells versus the Machines. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
hoping, after a well-deserved break, we can give her the love she deserves for making an ADHD disaster by witch, with a
Mm-hmm.
chronically old lady mentor whom we all love, and King and Hootie, who are the
Just,
two best characters Alex Hirsch has voiced. Sorry, Bill, Grunklestan.
Well,
just,
then, you can have preferences. You can have preferences.
just go to Netflix or wherever. Maybe not Netflix now. Who knows? Just go to wherever and just make the nondescript birdhouse, and just continue the story. It's not the outhouse
Well,
anymore. It's just the nondescript birdhouse. That way we can't get sued by Disney.
yeah. Well, we know Ida's canonically married to Stan because she went by
Well,
the fugitive.
divorced now, but yes.
Well, she stole his car. I mean, that's love by Stan standards. Standards.
Mm-hmm.
Haha.
So certainly is possible.
Well, anything else on the Owl House? I think I basically said everything I have to.
Go watch
I
it.
mean, have we
It was
talked about
good.
the ADHD rep?
What did you say, Jaya?
Have we talked about the ADHD rep in it? How accurate it is?
Yes, I
I
think we
I
did a
meant
little bit. It was
I
mentioned.
mentioned a bit, not necessarily because of ADHD thing, but I did mention that as someone with ADHD, Luz is probably the best representation I've seen of that side of my personality.
Mm.
Agreed. Luz was basically her chaotic side was who I was as a preteen.
Yeah.
Obviously, with less creativity, and I have a snake phobia, so you're not going to see me using snakes in a book report because.
Yes, for me on the snake phobia and creativity, I had some ideas.
But I think what's interesting is Luz doesn't still struggles with the ability to focus, and instead of her trying to conform to these standards, whether on Earth or in tech side, she instead makes little changes that accommodate her needs better. Like when she says she can't choose a course, she fights to learn them all.
Yeah, that's something I would never do, for example, like ADHD or not. I know that it will help my ADHD a lot more if I had to do all courses and not choose.
But I was worrying that she'd have to do a time turner like Hermione to stay on the
Yeah. But I guess, this is the point where the personality comes in rather than the ADHD itself, and she's just that ambitious.
Unfortunately, the classes are not at the same time, so she's
Mm,
able to keep up and be a good student.
Yeah. Well, so anything else?
String Bean? Anything we should say about
Oh yeah,
String Bean?
String Bean is adorable. String Bean is amazing.
Agreed.
Okay, I guess that's it, unless there's anything else.
No.
I can't think of something at the moment.
Well, we've seen some reviews already from YouTubers of season 3. Should we
Yeah.
talk about the very emotional one that was uploaded yesterday?
Let's I know which one you're talking about, and I was considering it, but I guess this is just something that's better not touch on it because it's a very personal thing to the YouTuber. Whoever knows what we're talking about knows. Um, I just don't feel
Also,
this is the right place and forum personally.
right? Well, could I talk about the hyperfixation of guilt of that YouTubers seem to disagree on?
Yeah, sure.
Because
Keep
in
it.
Sarcastic Chorus's review, he said he found it old that Luz was feeling guilty about helping Bellows, and she was obsessing over it. And when I think about it, like, but if you're ADHD, you have anxiety, you have trauma, even if people tell you it's okay, brains don't work like that. You hyperfixate on and obsess over your worst mistakes.
Yeah.
And I think that was pretty realistic. That even though Luz was reassured by everyone that she made the best decision she could, and Bellows is a liar and a manipulator, she still
Mhm.
had that lingering guilt.
Yeah, fully agreeing though.
So I think that was very accurate, and I am actually glad Dana put that in. Especially
Same.
since you can't go talk to a therapist about this. I mean, I could headcanon that maybe Rain becomes her therapist. They just start a witch Velos manipulated support group, and
Yeah,
Rain is
that sounds about right. But I agree with you that sometimes with when you suffer through anxiety and ADHD and stuff, you will blame yourself for stuff for the bigger picture if a decision you made seems to have caused that. I totally agree.
and especially since Luz's attempts to stop Bellows failed for the most part in season 2. Not for lack of trying or stubbornness. The problem is he and those who worked for him foresaw what he was trying to do because he knew her.
Hmm.
I I,
Um,
I agree. I think it was the right choice to. Oh, go
We
ahead.
talked about how Luz treats Bellows. How about the way Bellows treats Luz? That he can't seem to make up his mind about her. I think that he sees a lot of Caleb in her, but what do you guys think?
It's a
um,
possibility. Like we don't really know a lot about Caleb and Belos's backstory and everything, so it's hard to say for
like
certain.
we
But
know we
I
know
would
that
agree.
apparently the reason Bellos is doing all this is because of Caleb, but we don't know enough, and I get it's one of those where up to you to figure it out in your head.
I would agree, though.
Mhm.
I think it makes sense by everything they represented us with. But yeah, obviously, it's hard to say. We would need more context, and we didn't get that, unfortunately, because it's just not something they could focus on. But I do agree. I think they made the smart decision to make Luz hyperfixate on her guilt with everything that happened and how she felt about it. I think there was no good way to move on from that with the time they were given and the amount of episodes they had and everything they had to do and everything they needed to do for this season to end at least somewhat satisfyingly. So I think they made the right choice in what they focused on for Luz, and I think when she finally came to terms with it, I think it was all set up and done fairly well.
And I think it was probably talking with the Titan about it. But the Titan points out that for all of Bellows' claims that he was trying to help humanity, he ultimately was serving himself. He wanted to be the hero regardless of the cost. And Luz, despite claiming she wants to be the hero, it was never about her ego. It was about finding her purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And
But I guess, sorry, did you have anything to say?
Well, I think what's interesting is part of Lisa's character development is learning to let go of that need to become special. That she focuses on being a good friend, a good student to Ida, and a good sister to King, which she is. And also, I headcanon that King starts a YouTube with Camila videotaping him because he has a little muffin, and she would totally get his best angles.
Indeed, she would. But that's that's however one of those things that we can only imagine and pray for. We don't
Fanfic
we don't
writers
have
have
that.
fun. Anyways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
But
But I guess we did cover everything. So shall we wrap up?
Yeah.
I guess we shall. Hard to say
Oh,
goodbye. This show started airing before the pandemic started. Because I know it
yeah,
aired around the same time my family went to Disney for the last time before the pandemic started. It's been
yikes.
3 years, and
Hmm.
now it's gone. It's ended.
Yeah. Well, that said, it is now to say goodbye, but this is it for the Owl House and this episode of the Outcast. We hope you enjoyed. What were your thoughts about the Owl House in general? What do you think about the cancellation? And what would you like to see from the franchise at some point in the future? You can tell us all about it in the comment section below, on our Twitter, which is Berkcast with a capital B, capital C, and on our Tumblr, which is Berkcast Team. Jaya, where can people find you?
You can find me on Medium and on my blog at priyajshreither.com. And I'm gonna be lurking at the Dream Foundry conference this weekend. Oh, and next month I'm gonna be on a panel at the Nebulas, the SFWA's annual conference. So if you can sign in virtually, or if you can come to Anaheim, come see me, and I'll sign my new book for you.
And
All
go buy
right.
her new book. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I've heard things.
Go listen. Go listen to the interview we did with her on the new book, and yes, go read the new book. Well, that being said, until next time, I was HC.
I was Wolf.
And I was Jaya.
And we will see you all next time. Take care and hoot hoot.
Bye
Hoot toot!
bye.
Bye!